Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Um, Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on a fun live cast. We've got Dr. Katie Woodley from the Natural Pet Doctor with us. For those of you, a lot of you guys probably already recognize her. She was one of the speakers at the 2024 the More You Know Pet Wellness Summit. So super glad to have you on today to talk about one of our favorite things, all thing guts.
Yeah.
Saturday is what day is it? It's the National Dog and Cat Gut Health Awareness Day, and it seems like it's something that's so simple, but
Oh, it's not
it's
simple.
not. It's not at all. It can be hard to manage, and it's the root of a lot of problems. So I just wanted to talk about that today and have you on. And for those of you who are watching live, please comment. Use the hashtag Gut Health Innovative Pet Lab is raffling off one of these tests today. It's the comprehensive review. I know Dr. Katie loves these. They're great, and it's a $300 value. So comment with that hashtag. And Katie, welcome. Thank you for joining us. If you want to tell everyone who you are, what you do, and
Yeah.
before we get into it.
Thanks, Amanda, for having me back online instead of in
Yes.
person. It's great to see some people that were at the event too. So it's always great to see old faces and new faces also. A little bit of background about me. I was kind of shoved into the gut health space about 10 years ago. Personally, my personal journey involved inflammatory bowel disease, autoimmune disease with my husband being diagnosed. And we quickly realized that the conventional medicine approach didn't really work. And it actually led me down the holistic route of realizing, like, hey, we're just treating symptoms. Fresh food really does matter and makes a huge difference. And then also to really diving into root causes versus just symptomatic care, which I love. We're going to talk about some of the things around supplements and the overuse of supplements and things like probiotics today. But that's really where understanding the root causes and asking the question, why is the symptom here? Why am I using this supplement? Will completely change the game for you and your pet's health. And that's something that I'm really big on helping support and empower pet parents to just really dive deeper to explore those underlying reasons. Because as Amanda stated, it's not super simple. It seems like, yeah, the gut digests the food and then we poop it, like we poop out poop, right? Like it's not that simple. There's a lot of connecting areas of health, the gut brain axis, the gut skin axis. And a lot of people, including my veterinary colleagues, miss some of these symptoms that are actually connected to gut health. And so we end up going back and forth to the vet clinic for the same health issues. We're treating those symptoms and we get really frustrated and stuck. I'm sure there's some people here live that are maybe currently going through a journey like that. And so this is where I really want to hopefully empower you guys to be able to ask those deeper questions. And rather than just grabbing all the supplements and like throwing the whole kitchen sink at your pet and hoping it works, I really want you to avoid those supplement graveyards and be more intentional about the testing side of things, which I love. Innovative Pet Lab is raffling off a test, but also to being more intentional about the supplements and the diet and really thinking through how do I best support my pet, and also to the principles and the foundations behind it.
That's awesome. I mean, I think for me, having the store and, we're all about, you know, food is kind of our go-to here. And I think you agree with me here that food makes, I mean, that's like number one, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can't feed something really, really bad and expect your dog to have a great gut health. I mean, I don't know what your opinions on that are.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then, what is the study about gut health? Is it like 70% of what is it, the body or the brain is like all gut related?
So your immune system. So the
Okay.
majority of your immune system is actually located in your gut. So the same with our pets and with ourselves. And a lot of times what's happening, especially with, talking about symptoms that are related to maybe a gut health issue, this can be things like skin allergies, ear infections, licking the paws, hot spots. There's usually a gut component because there's so much of the immune system that's living within the gut that gets overactivated from inflammation, the microbiome. They're all speaking to one another. And so when that's off, we see other symptoms elsewhere in the body. And so it's really, really important to understand that. What's really neat now is before we didn't have any tests that could help identify if we have an underactive local immune system in our gut or an overactive immune system. And that's where I love using those innovative pet lab tests, because it's a stool test that you can order it from the comfort of your home. You pick up the stool, you put it in the little sample collecting kit, you send it off, and then you get results to actually better understand, are we dealing with leaky gut? Do we have inflammation? But also too, what is that immune system doing? Because there are certain key supplements that you can use based on those results to really support the local immune system and calm things down, which is really, really important when you have autoimmune disease like inflammatory bowel disease, or if you have allergies, so seasonal allergies, especially with food sensitivities, which, my
Yeah.
God, so many pets have food sensitivities. But I wanted to touch briefly too, Amanda, because you mentioned the beginning, food is one of the foundations, a very important one. And I find that a lot of pet parents start thinking about what supplements do I use instead of how can I improve the
Yeah.
diet. Because the first step whenever we're healing or optimizing health is we need to be thinking about, what do I need to remove or reduce that can lead to inflammation or create resistance for my pet achieving optimal health. And food is really, really important. I'd rather you spend more money on your food than buying all the supplements that you're going to need if we're feeding more processed food diets like kibble.
Of course. I mean, I think you probably get some of the same feedback that I get, at least in my store, where, allergies. I mean, I think that's probably the number one thing that people come to me for is allergies.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what do you have to fix allergies? And they always want a supplement. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, what do you have on the supplement wall that can help fix allergies? And I'm like, but what are you feeding? Like, well, I
Yeah.
don't want to change my food. I just want a supplement. I'm like,
Then
but
you're not going to,
you
you're
can
going to have
buy this
limited
$50
results.
supplement, you
Yeah.
know, or you can just change the food and your dog or cat will be better for it anyways. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't eat fast food every day and expect you just won't feel great. And, your pet's not going to feel great either. So I think that's, at least in here, I think that's number one for
Yeah.
me. And, you can't fix bad genetics, right? So, what
Well,
do you
here's the thing with genes though. Let's look at, like, there's so much research now around genetics where we can actually manipulate gene expression, which is super cool.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so this is the epigenetics. That means,
Okay.
how does the environment manage genes? So if you're stressed all the time, and let's say like you potentially have a predisposition to something like cancer, if you're constantly stressed, you're going to always be producing excess cortisol, other hormones. You're going to most likely also create leaky gut. You're going to impact the microbiome in the gut. And that's going to also be communicating with the cells and the DNA. And so what will happen is it will switch on certain genes. So
Interesting.
genes are like, we're loading the gun with genes. And then what's happening is food, environment, stressors, they're going to pull the trigger. So this is where genes are not the end all be all. Now, some things are, strong genetic predispositions, but I would say, based on personal experience and working with a lot of pets with chronic health problems, where they're told like, this is it, there's nothing you can do, that the power of food as medicine, using herbs, looking at the emotional health side too. I mean, who's not stressed today, right? Like, stress is a huge
Sure.
issue. And because of the gut brain axis, stress can and will directly cause leaky gut. So you can be feeding the most beautiful fresh food diet. You can be giving the right supplements. You've cleaned up your environment. You've removed like toxic cleaning products. But if you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off and like super stressed, your pet's going to feel that. And I'm not saying you're causing disease. That's really important too, because a lot of us, we feel guilt or shame around that. But it's something to be aware of how am I managing myself? I'm going to have a more stressful day. What do I need to do to take care of myself so I can take care of my pets, so that we're reducing the stress? But I want people to realize, like, we have so much ability and power to be able to manipulate gene expression through nutrigenomics, through the food and nutrition, and through the environment, through epigenetics. So that's really, really exciting. I know Dr. Jean Dodds has an
That's
entire
really cool.
book on the nutrigenomics. It's older now, but it's been out for a long time. And there's just more and more research that confirms that and backs it up with the power and the potential that we have.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, if you're like surrounding yourself with like friends who are just like always negative,
Yeah, you feel negative, right? You're just like, this sucks.
right?
Life
Like,
sucks.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, and I get that. I mean, my house is very chaotic and very stressful, and yeah, it's good to like sit back and remember to just like kind of turn it
breathe.
off for a little while. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, like, I mean, here's, like, simple things, right? Obviously, watch lives like this so you keep on learning, but
Right.
if you find yourself, like, in the scroll hole on social media, this is where, make sure you're turning it off. You're getting outside, you're grounding, you're absorbing the really good energy that's out in nature to help rebalance yourself, even if it's only 5 minutes. So that's really, really important, and most people don't do it because we're just so used to just living a crazy busy life, and we're surrounded by news and all the crazy things that are out there, and it's really, really stressful. So once we become aware of something, we can do something about it. That's
Right.
really, really important, right? Like your conferences, the more you know, the better we can do, right? So
Absolutely.
if we don't know about it, we can't do anything about it because we don't know. So I think that's a really key area, especially with gut health, to focus on for yourself, but also for your pets, because they can mirror our emotions without us even realizing it.
That's pretty amazing. And it just shows like how close our pets are to us and which is
Yeah.
why we love them so much.
I mean,
So
like, they get the same health issues we do. So I would say 90% of my clients I work with, they always say, it's really weird. I have IBD also, and my cat has
mhm,
IBD. And I'm like, I'm not surprised.
wow.
Obviously, you didn't cause it, but you're exposed to a lot of the same toxins, the stressors, you're living in the same environment. So it makes sense.
Yeah. Would you something you touched about a minute ago was leaky gut. What are symptoms of leaky gut? Like we hear that term a lot and I think a lot
Yeah.
of people don't know what is it, you know?
Yeah, so leaky gut gets thrown around a lot. And what leaky gut essentially is, when we think about the digestive tract, where our pets are eating the food, it's hopefully being broken down in the stomach by the enzymes, the stomach acid, and then it moves into the small intestine and then the large intestine, where the microbes are also digesting, breaking down the food. They're producing neurotransmitters and hormones and all sorts of really beneficial, important things. Now, what happens is, if we're not digesting that food well, and it's not being broken down into smaller particles. So things like protein should be broken down into what we call amino acids, so tiny small particles to be absorbed. If they're still in their whole food form, the immune system that we talked about just before is sitting right there, kind of hopefully inactivating any toxins, parasites, bacteria, and removing them from the body so it doesn't overstimulate the immune system and cause a reaction. Now, what can happen is, if we don't have the right microbes, or we have an overgrowth of bad bacteria, we're not digesting the food well, or we have a lot of inflammation from toxins, that gut lining is only one cell layer thick. And if it gets inflamed, what happens is those tight junctions, they're holding those gut cells nice and tight, or they should be, they start getting inflamed, they separate. Now we start getting bacteria, toxins, food particles passing through from the inside of the gut to the bloodstream, which is right where the immune system is sitting. And so it goes, wait a second, this is foreign. What is this? And it mounts an immune response. So the symptoms that you can see if we're worried about things like leaky gut or a gut imbalance, of course, are going to be diarrhea. We might see vomiting. You could see acid reflux. Anal gland issues can be related to this. So any digestive issue, we always want to be thinking about that. Chronic recurring, like Giardia infections or parasites. Like, I always hear, why does my pet keep getting this? And I go, we have a problem with the gut. It's not healthy. It's not able to manage that when it's exposed to it. And so it keeps recurring. But the other symptoms of leaky gut are going to be things that are also very common in our pets. That's where those allergies come in: the itchy paws, the licking excessively, the hot spots, the seasonal allergies too, food sensitivities, where you feed, like, your pet's really sensitive to, like, you change the food, or you give them a supplement, or you give them like, you change the brand and you're like, I can't do it. They're too sensitive. We need to be thinking about leaky gut. The other thing too that commonly is missed is the behavior side. So a lot of
Yes,
pets are
I'm so
super
glad you brought that
anxious.
up. Yes.
Yes, and this is where that gut brain axis is really, really important and commonly missed. So the vagus nerve is one of the biggest nerves in our pet's body and our body, and it connects the brain right to the gut. And there's constant communication back and forth. There's actually more communication from the brain down. That's why stress is really important to be aware of. But if we have inflammation, we're having inflammatory cytokines and mediators and the things that are being produced by the immune system. When something's off, they will actually signal through that nerve all the way up to the brain, and it creates what we call brain on fire, which sounds super scary, but it's neuroinflammation. So we
Wow.
essentially get set up with inflammation in the brain. What does that show up as? Cognitive decline. That can show up like that, but also too anxiety, hyperreactivity. So I hear and I work with a lot of pet parents where they'll say, as my dogs age, they've become more reactive to like thunderstorms or to noises, or my cat like all of a sudden flies off their handle if I like move, right? And they're like, why is that? And usually we need to look to the gut. And there's things that we can do too to also reduce inflammation, of course, that's part of it. But we need to make sure we're not missing the root imbalances, because you can once again get stuck in that vicious cycle of just trying all these different supplements, when in
Mhm.
reality, we need to know what we're treating. So those are big things to keep in mind. Now, obviously, I'm a big fan of training with the behavior side of things. There are some things, there's a lot of behavior stuff that we also need to train
Right.
or work with a behaviorist on. But I find before you reach for your drugs, you need to make sure that we're ruling out hormonal issues like thyroid disease. Now, the thyroid hormone is produced in the gut.
Mhm.
So if we have an imbalance, it can impact thyroid and lead to things like hypothyroidism. We also want to make sure we're checking the microbiome. So animal biome is a great stool test. Doing the innovative pet lab test, looking at what's going on with digestion, detoxification, what's going on with inflammation. Do we have leaky gut? Is that immune system not working well? So now, especially in the States, I'm sorry if you're overseas, if you're listening, but we have such an amazing assortment of tools to help guide us within what we do with that information. Whereas before, we could assume that was going on, and then we can treat based on food therapy, energetics of food, herbs, supplements, those types of things. But now I always love the test don't guess approach, because it makes things faster, and
Of course.
also it reduces the cost of your treatment too, because we know what we're treating now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did. I've done several of the innovative pet labs tests,
They're
and
awesome.
they have been very, very useful. In particular, with my really, really senior beagle, who was having issues, and we couldn't figure it out. And voila, like and she gets the best food, and she gets the best of everything, and the best
Yeah.
veterinary care. And it was like something so minor, but hey, the test, told me. So yeah,
Yeah.
a
I
lot
mean,
of that got away.
one of the big things too, and I've seen this with a lot of my clients where they're using really good supplement brands, and they'll test and they come back reacting to gluten, and there's hidden sources of gluten in the supplements. So that's where I always say, look at the inactive ingredients too when you're
Correct.
using supplement brands, because I'm appalled at a lot of the stuff that gets snuck into a lot of these supplement brands. I mean, it's not regulated. So, it's a free for all out there, but that test will
Absolutely.
give you an idea like, hey, like we're reacting to gluten. It doesn't necessarily mean yet that we have inflammation. If calprotectin, which is one of the biomarkers they test with the innovative pet lab test, if that's normal, that means we don't have inflammation yet, which is good to know. Okay. We're at the beginning stages where the immune system's starting to be like, hey, some things I'm not happy with this. So if you're feeding kibble, 100% do this test, even if it's just like the leaky gut, not the comprehensive test. You want to know if your pet is reacting to the food you're feeding, because you may not have any symptoms now, but it will show you your pet's in the process of starting to react, and they're on a spectrum of like disease where we have optimal health at one end and we have a diagnosis at the other end, and we're always fluctuating every single day. And if we keep feeding or doing the same thing that's aggravating that immune system or triggering things, we're going to be moving much closer to when we start seeing symptoms. We're going to get a diagnosis. We don't want to be at that end. We want to fix the problem before you get there.
Well, and it's easier to prevent and before it like
Yes.
blows up into something really big that's a lot
Yes.
harder to manage. So
100%.
you talk about supplements a lot, and I sell lots of supplements in my store.
Yes.
And you and I have talked about this before, and you talked about it at the summit, is the overuse of supplements.
Yep.
And I want to bring up probiotics because it's like the like the thing, right? Like
Yeah.
every dog must be on a probiotic. People don't even know
And
why
cats.
they're on. Yeah, and cats. And I cannot tell you how. I mean, probiotics are probably our one of our number one selling supplements in the store, and we have a various, and a lot of animals do need them. Like my beagle did need
Yep.
a digestive enzyme with a probiotic in it, and that actually helped, her with her symptoms of what she was having. However, there's customers that come in the store frequently and they're like, I need a probiotic. Which ones do you have? I'm like, well, why do you want it?
Yeah.
Well, my neighbor's dog gets probiotic, or my vet said I need a probiotic, but people don't know why. So could you kind of like talk about that a little bit, and your thoughts and
Yeah.
whys and nots? And I know that's kind of a loaded question, but
No, let's go there.
yeah.
So, yeah, because there is a lot of there's a lot of pros and cons around probiotics, but once again, what I love that you said is you're asking why do you want to use it, right? Just because something seems to work well for someone else doesn't mean that your pet or yourself would do well with it. We are all individuals. And so this is really, really important to keep in mind. And also, too, so what we're looking at, like, what is a probiotic? So ideally, it's a beneficial bacteria that's going to help modulate the microbiome. So the microbiome is the trillions of different organisms that live in your pet's gut. It's going to be made of different bacteria, fungi, viruses, protozoa. It's an assortment of different microorganisms that hopefully are all playing nice together, speaking together nicely, and doing what they're supposed to. Now, unfortunately, a lot of pets and people were exposed to toxins, pesticides, herbicides, things like glyphosate. There's lots of chemicals in the water. There's chemicals in the food that we eat. There's stressors. There's all sorts of things. Drugs can impact the microbiome. So there is a time and a place to use probiotics. Now, the thing is once again, I love the test, don't guess. So use an animal microbiome test if you can. Most people around the world can access that now, which is really cool. So that way you can actually get an idea, do I have dysbiosis? Dysbiosis, what that means is an imbalance of the good versus bad bacteria. And also, do I have enough of the diversity of like the beneficial bacteria? So a lot of times when we give, say, like a drug, especially metronidazole is a commonly used one for diarrhea, it wipes out everything. And so we end up with a lack of diversity, and then it allows the overgrowth of bad bacteria like Clostridium or E. coli to overgrow afterwards. And then your pet's fine. And then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks later, they're not fine again. And that's probably what's happening most of the time. So those tests are really helpful to identify, do we actually need a probiotic because something is off in the microbiome? So those would be things I'd be looking at if we have GI issues, if we have like skin issues, but I'm a big fan if you can test, and I know not everyone can afford those tests, but if you can, at least try to get one test in to get an idea if you're thinking about using a probiotic. Because here's the thing, they're not a benign thing. Like we're putting bacteria in. So I want you to think about like just basic math. 1 + 1 = 2. So if we're adding something into the mix, something else has to give. It's going to shift the balance of the bacteria and that microbiome in a way that we may not want it to. The other thing too is that there's different types of probiotics. So I work with a lot of pets with gut and
Mhm.
skin health issues. And so they've done everything by the time they get to me. I'm not the first opinion. I love it when I am, but I'm usually like the sixth or seventh. And so they've done a lot of different things. And I hear a lot is I gave these probiotics, usually ones that have like 7 different strains, usually your bifidobacterium, your lactobacillus, those are your typical strains that are included in a lot of these, enterococcus, and they gave them and their pet got more bloated, they got more like gassy, they had GI upset. So this is where if you're seeing those symptoms, we have to better understand, okay, well, what's happening there? We can potentially have an overgrowth of bad bacteria in the small intestine, so the first part of the gut, because of all the things we've already talked about. And so if you're then feeding another like bacteria into this fire, it's like fuel, adding fuel to the fire. We see a flare up. This is what we call like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So that gives us a signal of like, hey, those don't work. Now, there's other different types of bacteria, probiotics that we would potentially use if we wanted, if we saw that. If your pet's really sensitive, this is where spore-based probiotics. So these are going to be like your bacillus strains. So there's soil-based strains also are things that you'll hear about. what happens with these is that they're encapsulated. So they actually kind of pass right through potentially that firestorm of the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. They get to the colon, they can modulate that, and they can help calm things down and do what we want them to do. So there isn't science around like picking a probiotic and helping them. The other thing too is that I don't use a ton of probiotics. I tend to use more like fermented foods if I can, and the pet can tolerate them, because then you're getting a whole food source. You're also getting all the beautiful like vitamins, nutrients, and minerals in whole food form that are much more easily absorbed too. And then you're getting those natural microbes also. So I really like your fermented foods. Your sauerkrauts are great. Your fermented like broths are fantastic.
I'm gonna stop you for
Your
2 seconds and bring up the green juju
yes,
mushroom probiotic
yeah.
that's ferment, which is really cool. And what I like about it is it's such a, have you used it yet? I shouldn't ask you that.
I have some clients that have used it. I
Okay.
personally haven't used it with
Yeah,
like my cats can be picky with
that's
lots
right.
of
You,
cats.
yeah, cat, my
I have
cats.
a cat. I have a cats.
I see the kitty in
We
the
have
back.
one kitty. One kitty's
Really
joined us. If
now.
anyone, I saw someone noticed it.
Yes,
Kim
yes,
noticed
I've
it.
noticed that. But I like that one because it's like such a small amount that has to be used.
Yeah,
You're not like adding a whole bunch of extra things in. And like if you have a even a large dog, that like itty bitty bottle, I don't have one right beside me, but if you come in the store, you can see it. That little itty bitty bottle will last so long for
yeah,
such a small or for a bigger dog too. So I just had to throw that one out there because I
yeah.
like that one.
Well, one of the other things to think about too, because people are just grabbing all sorts of
Oh
brands,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the other thing that goes along with probiotics are the prebiotics. So
Yes.
prebiotics are the food source for the beneficial bacteria. We need to feed them. That's like why fiber is such a big thing now, especially with
Right.
raw fed animals. They're deficient. A lot of them are deficient in fiber. It's a food
Yeah.
source to feed the microbiome. But they're, especially if your pet's sensitive, they can be sensitive to inulin, to your fructooligosaccharides. So you'll see like FOS or MOS for monooligosaccharides
Mhm.
on the label. Those are your prebiotics. So they're going to be working in the body very differently too. And then, unfortunately, a lot of the common popular probiotics in the veterinary industry also have things like Animal Digest, which is a rendered product and can create inflammation in the gut. It's not a high quality product. I don't like using them.
I see that.
One of the other common brands also has titanium dioxide in it. This is the whitener in sunscreen, which is a known
Solid.
carcinogen.
Love
We
that.
don't want it. Like, why would
No.
you ingest that? It's actually it's not even allowed in products over in Europe. It's banned. But in the beautiful USA, we like to add additional stuff to our food to
Y'all are
kill
getting
us
the
slowly.
probiotic. Go look it up. I'm not going to name names here, but they'll
I know, I'm
probably
gonna leave the name
go
out.
look
It's
it
the
up.
most popular one, and here's the crazy thing. Most vets, most of my colleagues don't know. They don't
No,
know. I was prescribing it years ago, and then I learned it, and I was like, "Holy crap. Like, this is not
yeah,
good." Like, I
right.
was appalled, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's no good." I just didn't know. Once again, if we don't know, we can't change
No.
anything because we just don't know to do better. So this is also something to think about, and one of those things where if you're looking at like the proactive approach for gut health, your variety for your food, adding in a source of fiber, and using your fermented products are a really great, easy way to do that without having to give all these other supplements.
So if I'm coming to you, my dog is or cat is perfectly healthy. There is nothing wrong with them that I can see.
Yep.
What are the three things that you are telling me to do to be adding to my pet's diet or to not be doing? Like what are my top three
Yep.
things for doing?
Are you feeding fresh? Okay, you're feeding a raw food diet. Okay, I always have to ask because that would be my number one. What are you feeding? So I'm a big fan of keeping things simple for people and also really starting with the basics. And you may already be doing these things, but I find that so many people are missing some of the basics. So I would be looking at what's in your environment. What are your cleaning products? Are you filtering your water? What laundry detergent are you using? And also too, I'm still shocked with how many people are still using your isosazolazine flea and tick products. Please burn those.
Burnham.
So this
So
is going to be things like Simparica, Credelio, Brevecto. Do not use them. They are a neurotoxin, but I am so shocked, Amanda, that they sneak in and it's just like a side thing. And we have so many great natural repellents. And the reason why I bring up all these things that don't sound like they're related to gut health is that, for one, it's easy to remove things and transition over time to more natural products. And a lot of times they're cheaper, your
They
cleaning
are.
products and all of those. So, which is great. But we have to think about, how do I remove the resistance to healing? Because it'll increase the resilience of my pet's body. So it makes it easier for them to stay healthier. So those are things like your pesticides on your lawn. Like I still am appalled how many people use glyphosate or Roundup or the equivalent on their yards, and also to becoming aware of what's around you. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I've never seen so much spraying in my entire life. And I know it played a part with my dog developing a brain tumor. I can't say it caused it. It's multifactorial. I get it. However, it did not help things. And there are known connections to cancer and brain tumors. So this is, once again, being aware of what's around you and what's happening. Even if we can't control what other people are doing, you can support the detox pathways, right? We can support the gut health through the food. So you'd be thinking about, okay, I'm feeding this food, I'm reducing the potential toxins. What are some of the superfood toppers that I can add on top? This would be things like the dandelion leaves, adding in things like burdock root. I love using teas. Teas are very easy. So what are the natural things we can use to support detoxification also? Nice and gentle. We don't want detox reactions, but it'll help our pets flush out those toxins so they're not building up inflammation that then leads to a health problem down the road. So I really want people to be thinking about remove, reduce, optimize the food. What are some superfoods? Medicinal mushrooms, adding those on top, or a supplement. Like, I love medicinal mushroom supplements. They're really handy. And then looking at also to, your stress. That's a key thing. And I know people hate it when I say that, but we also need to be
True. I
thinking
mean,
about how to support our stress levels. And if
right.
simple, easy way, think about, do we need to add something like chamomile tea in for our pets' food and have a cup of chamomile tea ourselves? So there's simple ways to help kind of calm down that nervous system, support our pets, but also support ourselves, just because I think a lot of people get stuck kind of 3 steps down the road, but we miss some of these earlier stages that have led to a gut health issue.
And I think there are some of those things are also very easy things to do. If you
Yeah, if you have to
or
add
something
10
real
things
easy,
in.
like take
Yeah.
a couple tablespoons and add it. It's
Yeah.
very easy to do. And I'm glad you brought up the flea and tick stuff. That is such a hard
Yeah.
one for me. And I saw someone said that it's hard in Virginia. It is hard in Virginia. Ticks love Virginia. They
Yeah.
absolutely love
I
Virginia.
know.
We have
I
lots
know.
of fleas. I have 11 animals in my house. My cats are all indoor, but my dogs do all go outside.
Yeah.
We live in a field that's surrounded by woods. I don't have any of the animals that currently are in my house. They've all been adopted, but who've ever, from me, used
Yeah.
flea and tick products. And I use natural alternatives, and we don't have problems at
Yeah.
all.
I mean,
So
it's hard. Yeah.
it's easily, if you do it regularly, and I think that's
Yeah.
the thing is, when people come in and talk about flea and tick stuff, they're used to doing a once a month thing, whether that's a once a month pill, a
Yeah.
once a month thing behind the neck, and it's once and done. When you're using all natural products, it's not a once a month thing, it's a daily, weekly thing to keep up with. Yes, it's one more thing to do, but I keep my bottle of Wondercide right by my back door,
Yeah. Yeah.
and my kids go outside, and that's what I put on them, and that's what I put on my dogs. And once you get in the habit of it, I think it's a lot easier, and different things work different. Some
Yeah.
people, I like Wondercide, but some of my staff like Ken and Kind. Like, there's just so
Yeah.
many options out there, and I think depending on where you live, you have to figure out which one works best for you. They're not super expensive. um
Yeah. I
so
mean, you have to layer them too. Like, if you're in these
absolutely.
areas, like if you're relying on one, and I love what you said about the consistency. I think what's happened is, like, we don't think about our health every day either.
Right.
Like, it's kind of like it's in the background. We're not thinking about it. And when we switch to a natural approach, we become aware of so many other things. And every day, like, we have to detox every day. We need to think about our food, but I don't want it to stress people out. Like, it essentially just becomes a habit, right, Amanda,
It
where
is.
you're like, they go out and you spray them. But like, there's like the tickless tags, there's
Love those. Those
collars,
are
those,
great.
You can put garlic in the food. There's also great products where you can add, Wildly Blended has options. Wolf Creek has options to add into the food. There's so many great options where you can have your pet eat the repellents safely. And then also to using your topical sprays or creating your own. There's so many great recipes. I know I've
So
thrown out a
many.
lot of recipes
Forever
with,
Dog has some out there.
yeah,
You posted some.
but you
There's
have to use a
lots of them.
combination. That's the thing. So like tick list tag, I see Martine, I see you. This is where multiple things, keeping in mind it's not an insecticide, so it's a repellent. So we still need to check our pets too.
Yeah.
So this is where like lint rollers are really good, lint rolling the dog when they come back in and just seeing if you're picking up any of those little tiny nymphs of the ticks that are harder to see. And we do our best. So it's just one of those things that I will never ever recommend those types of flea products. Now, if we have to give something, there's other ones that are a little bit safer that aren't in that class of drug if there's an infestation. However, I try my best not to use any of that stuff because I've had I've talked to pet parents where their pets were dying from one dose, from liver failure from one dose, and I will never recommend it to anyone. It was too traumatizing. It was horrible. And there's an FDA warning on them. It's not worth it. It is not worth it. I would rather deal with a tick issue than deal with a dead animal. And I know that's rough to say, but I can
Same.
treat tick issues. I can treat the autoimmune disease. I can treat the health issues that come from that. So I can't treat a dead animal.
No, that's very right. We have a few minutes left, and I know there's some questions in here. So if anyone has some questions, we'll try to get to them. But Kirsten brought up a good one. Can you quickly discuss a pet's age and its effect on the digestive enzymes in the gut and its ability to break down something as they get older?
Yes. So digestive enzymes are a big part of my practice and working with a lot of pets, especially with chronic gut and skin issues. So when we age, same with our pets, this applies both to humans and pets, is that we naturally lose the ability to produce digestive enzymes. Also, too, when you think about, okay, we're dealing with all these things throughout the years, we also tend to not be able to produce enough stomach acid too. So we need enough stomach acid to actually activate digestive enzymes, pepsin, in the stomach, that first part where all the food is coming in. Our pets also lack amylase in their saliva. That's an important digestive enzyme to break down carbs. So if we're feeding a high carb diet like kibble, it's getting into the stomach. We need there to be enough stomach acid to stimulate digestive enzymes. A lot of times there's not, especially if we're using antacids or they've been on non-steroidal pain medications or they've had antibiotics or they have a lot of inflammation. So the food doesn't get digested. And then we're hoping that also, too, it's stimulating the pancreas to release more digestive enzymes to help break down proteins, fats, carbs in the small intestine when the food gets there next. So as we age, we start not being able to produce these as well. So this is where if you're noticing like your pet is experiencing some of these things, and a lot of times I will use these regardless, is I put them onto a supplement that contains things like betaine hydrochloride that's going to reduce the pH in the stomach. So it's adding that, it's acidifying it. So it's going to help activate the natural enzyme production of pepsin. But also too, I'm usually using a product that also has other digestive enzymes like pepsin, that like lipases to break down fat, like depending on what diet that pet is on will dictate what type of enzymatic supplement I'm using. Because if we have a high carb diet, we need more enzymes that are going to break down those types of products and those types of foods. But it's a really helpful way to get your pet digesting and absorbing those nutrients because so many pets become nutrition deficient over time. And I see those on hair tissue mineral analysis tests when we're testing that we need them breaking down their food. So there's a lot of great brands. I know you carry a lot of great brands. Out there, you can use pet products. I use a lot of human products that are hypoallergenic. So it doesn't have additional like flavorings because I just work with so many sensitive pets. But there's a lot of great options that you can use. And I recommend trying it and seeing how your pet feels. Keep a journal, pay attention to their stool, their energy levels, their weight, really, really important.
That's awesome. I just want to point out, someone made a comment. A. Jenkins said that it's tough to spray cats. Yes, it is. I will put it on my hands and just pet my cat with it. I don't know.
That's what
I
I
can't
do.
do it, but
Yeah.
They think they're getting it's like I washed my hands and I didn't only love it. But yes, my cats do not like this.
Yeah, cats don't like sprayers.
Spray is a trigger for them.
Yes.
We are going to raffle off this test here in a second. If you live close to me, you can come to the store and pick it up. Otherwise, we can ship it out to you guys. If you have not commented yet, please do so with the hashtag gut health, all one word, all together. Yes. Aging and I see that. But yeah, so comment with that. We are going to do that. Also, I'm going to put up a link at the end here, so don't leave. For she is sharing one of her guides, which is a very valuable tool. I think it's like what 40 pages, something
It's
like
like
that.
I think it's close to 60 pages.
Okay,
So
never
it's
mind. All
intense.
right.
It's
Yeah,
not a beginner guide,
but
but
it's good and it's free. So that's gonna be great. So let me start to do this. If I can. I haven't done this in a while, you guys. So bear with me here. All right, here we go, you guys. Drum roll, please.
oh, that's pretty cool.
If it's going to.
Oh, it's not
Oh
working.
gosh. Hang on, you guys. Hang on. See, this is what happens when
It's
I
live.
because it's live. So hang on. Apparently, God said gut check, not gut health. So hang on. I'm gonna fix it. I know, y'all. It's been a long week. Okay, gonna go back to this. Ask your questions while I'm fixing this.
Yeah, you got me sitting here waiting
I
for you guys.
know.
I know Kristen I just wanted to touch on the BPC. So peptides are not talked about in the pet world, but I've started talking about them and using them in my patients. Um, just brief, anyone here, drop in the chat if you're here live, if you've heard of like peptides like BPC 157. So they're very popular in the human functional medicine space. And what's really neat is they're very safe. They're not meant to be used long term. So we typically, depending on the type of peptide, we use it for a short period of time. We come off of it. We may not need to go back on it because what it's doing is signaling the cell and helping it to express the natural way that it should be. So, like we talked about, as we age, we lose the ability to produce digestive enzymes, but we also are naturally producing peptides. So BPC 157 is produced in the stomach acid, but there's a lot of other peptides being produced in the gut that naturally decrease too. So we can use specific peptides to actually heal the gut and help heal and repair it by increasing blood flow to those areas and helping to regenerate like the cartilage and the bone. And they're really, really neat. I use them personally. I can attest to them. Yeah, they're fantastic. So BPC 157 is definitely one of those to take a look at if you have anything like a cruciate ligament tear. I know we're talking about gut, but that's really good for helping to repair those ligaments. But also, too, if you have acid reflux, inflammatory bowel disease, there's a lot of research on the human side. And the brand that I use, there's a link also. I know I didn't share this with you, Amanda, but I have a link for the pet, like the pet tides from Integrative Peptide brand. So they've actually made it really, really easy. I actually started
What
with
is
my
that
cat.
called? I can put it in the comments.
So I will drop it after this. I'll
Okay.
go back in because you would need to go through the link that I have
Okay.
because it's a practitioner only
Perfect.
website. Yeah. And I'll share that with everyone because my cats lick it up. It's an oil based peptide. So you can also put it in the food if you need to. BPC is really resistant to stomach acid. So it's not broken down because it's produced in the stomach acid. But you usually, just to give people an idea, I have some resources with it on how to use it too. But you're going to typically use it up to 90 days and then you come off of it because you don't need peptides like normal supplements. And you can use it with your other supplements to continue healing the body. But a lot of times you find you don't need all the other supplements because the peptide did what the body needed to actually heal.
Good.
So it's really, really neat. And they're really, really safe. They can be used with medications. They can be used with supplements. They can be used with any food. And they're they're not going to create an adverse reaction. Obviously, every pet is different. It's an oil base. So if your pet's not digesting fats and oils well, that tells us more about imbalances. So keep that in mind. But that would be something looking into those peptides.
That's very interesting. We're going to see if this works. I think I fixed it, you guys. We're going to find out. Here we go. It's working.
LaRonja! Yay! I
Yay!
love LaRonja. Oh,
Awesome.
yay!
Rhonda, please send myself an email, or you can shoot me a DM here on Facebook. But we can get that shipped to you guys. And then lastly, I am going to pop this up where you can download. The link is in the comments, but Dr. Katie Woodley has graciously shared her guide to pet gut health through nutrition. It's a good read, and I think you guys will all find it very, very useful. And you can find Katie at thenaturalpetdoctor.com. And thank you so much for coming back. It's good to see you. It was really fun to have you here in person this summer.
Yes.
And unfortunately, Katie's not coming back next summer, but a lot of her friends will be here. So the More You Know Pet Wellness Summit is going to be next July 12th. And maybe 1 year you can make another appearance again. So
sounds good. I
thank you
appreciate it.
guys so much.
Thanks, everyone.
I appreciate it. And I'll be back tomorrow with Jay and Adrian from the Two Crazy Cat Ladies, as well as Jamie from Innovative Pet Lab. And I will talk to you all later. Thank you guys. Bye.